The following is excerpted from Kill Switch, Book 1 of the Life Force series by Joss Conlon, read by the author. Chapter 3, Getting on Track. There is one truth which I know to be undeniable. History has proven it out. The greatest men and women throughout time have not only used this truth to achieve their dreams, but have trumpeted it from the highest mountaintops for anyone and everyone to hear. The problem is, despite hearing it and seeing the results, not enough people take it seriously. Not enough people put in the necessary effort to maximize the benefits that are available simply by recognizing this truth and putting it into daily practice in their lives. The truth of which I speak is this, that you are in control of your own mind, and your mind is in control of the entire world. Therefore, to have everything out of life that you want to have, you have to force yourself to actually take control of your mind instead of letting your mind control you. And that's what we're going to begin doing right now. Let's start with what doesn't work. You know it doesn't work because you've probably tried some or all of these things, and they've eventually either crapped out on you or they actually made things worse. So for the sake of argument, let's just go with the following statement. Most crap is crap and doesn't work. Forget therapy. Forget the delusions of religion. Above all, forget all of the crappity crap you use to try to hide from your problems. Drugs, alcohol, television, promiscuous sex, excessive eating or sleeping, etc. Forget all the paths of limited responsibility. Beginning now, you are wholly and fully responsible for your own course correction. If you do it, it'll be done. If you don't, it won't. It's just that simple. Every part of your world exists between your ears and nowhere else. I'm not going to go into metaphysics, and I don't care to discuss the realities of the world. We both know you can't meditate for a few moments and turn your 73 Pinto into a new Ferrari. Life obviously doesn't work that way. But the truth that you've avoided forever is that life does work exactly as you see fit to imagine it, so long as you take complete control of your ability to think and feel. You may not be able to wiggle your nose and turn your clunker into a sports car, but you can change how your clunker makes you feel, change how you view your perfectly reliable transportation that gets you where you need to go. And you can change how the sports car makes you feel, change how you view the overpriced, too expensive to insure, hard to find parts for, can't keep the damn thing on the road for more than 20 minutes piece of metal and rubber that you only think you want to have. It's the same with a supermodel girlfriend or a lavish house in the suburbs, a kidney-shaped swimming pool, or a job with a corner office. Ask any billionaire how wonderful it is to be a billionaire, and he'll lay out all the disadvantages to having more money than God. He'll start with how you can't trust anyone. He'll regale you with stories of love that was never really love, gold-digging romantic partners you could never get close to or feel anything meaningful for, family members you didn't even know you had, but who show up with their hats in their hands every other day, and offspring so spoiled and entitled that they'll never amount to a hill of beans. A billionaire will remind you about his 80-hour work weeks and the multi-million-dollar yacht that he owns, but never gets to spend time aboard. Finally, he'll detail how careful he has to be every second of the day because his family is subject to kidnapping every time they leave the safety of their compound. The quality of your life is entirely a matter of perspective. The same is true of all the things that lift you up or bring you down. There is no situation that can't be viewed as a positive or a negative. All of the things that depress you could just as easily elevate you if you'll only change how you view them. For example, we've all lost relationships with partners we thought were amazing and irreplaceable until we replaced them with way better. The best part is, it was easy. We just had to change our mindsets to truly see things for the good rather than the bad. Letting yourself become stuck in the bad simply ensures that you'll be stuck in the bad. Depression feeds on itself. Misery seeks out other misery. As they say, it loves company. Your life doesn't change because you don't change it. You let yourself become mired in filth until filth becomes comfortable. You whine about how awful you feel, but you don't make any real effort to feel differently. Worst of all, you trick yourself with the wish and hope game. You start praying for someone else to take your troubles away, wishing things were somehow different, hoping things work out. What horse hockey all of that is. None of that stuff changes your life. None of it works. It's all crap. This applies to all the supposedly troublesome areas of your life. You can wish all you want that your wife hadn't lied to you, but it won't take back the lie. You can pray all you want that the pregnancy test comes back negative, but it won't make you any less pregnant. You can cry, cuss, stomp, and generally make an ass out of yourself, but that won't keep the constable from putting you in the back of his car for a ride down to the magistrate's office. The realities of life are the realities of life. It's what you do with them that matters, and only adjusting your outlook from negative to positive will change them over time to your benefit. Only you, and the mental approach you take, will turn the bad into the good. So how do you do that? The easiest way is to master the visualization technique I'm about to teach you. It doesn't allow your thoughts to empower the negative. It doesn't hide the negative, but rather accentuates the good that comes from every situation. In essence, it causes you to force your thoughts to the positive, which propels you from potentially devastated to incredibly motivated in a matter of seconds. The best part of it is that once you've practiced the technique for a while, you'll find that your thoughts don't tend to wander into the negative much at all. In fact, you'll be too busy with purposeful, positive thoughts and subsequent actions to even leave room for negative thinking in the first place. It starts with a simple proposition. There are only two states of being which concern you, joy and misery. There is no gray area, no middle ground. You are solely concerned with achieving joy and avoiding misery. What happens in between those two extremes only matters as it relates to pushing toward one and away from the other. From today forward, you have only two mental states of being with which you must concern yourself. One is joy, the other is misery. Every thought you have must be considered against those and only those states of being. Each represents opposite ends of a spectrum toward which the thought in question will propel you. If your thought thrusts you toward joy, go with it. If it thrusts you toward misery, replace it. If it has the potential for either outcome, you must accept only the positive aspect of it, or you must replace it. Here's how to best envision this process. Begin by picturing your entire life as a train ride, conducted on a perfectly straight track, where beauty and wonder and laughter and comfort lay at one end, and darkness, pain, disappointment, and desolation lay at the other. The good news is there's only one person on this train, and he's got the controls in his hands at all times. That person is you. This train never derails. It never stops moving except for the instant when it's changing direction. The engine starts the day you're born and stops on the day that you die, but beyond those two events, it's perpetually in motion, and you decide which way it's heading, and at what speed, every second of the day. The track is never out. It never curves. The grade is perfectly flat and never steepens. The movement of the train is never impeded in any way. It simply goes forward or backward. The only thing that is adjustable on this train, other than the direction, is the speed at which it hurtles toward one pole or the other. This train operates with a simple three-position lever. There is forward, backward, and cruise. The lever is spring-loaded so that it automatically returns to cruise after every move to one or the other direction. If the train is cruising at high speed toward the good, a push of the lever in the opposite direction will slow the momentum but will not stop the train or reverse the course. The longer the lever remains in a particular location, or the more times in a row that the lever is pushed there before being returned to cruise, the more momentum will be built up in that direction. Eventually, repeated pushes toward backward will slow the forward momentum, which over time will cause the train to reverse course. The same applies to the train when it's heading backwards. Repeated pushes forward toward joy will cause the train to slow until it eventually reverses course. Repeated pushes in the direction the train is currently moving will increase the speed of the train in that direction and make the act of slowing and reversing the train much more difficult to accomplish. While this remains a mere visualization, the proof of concept can be found when you consider how people loaded with joy are so hard to sadden, and people loaded with sadness are so hard to cheer up. With every thought you have, the lever of the train is pushed forward or backward. To control the lever, you must control your thoughts. If you do not consciously control your thoughts, you cannot consciously control how they affect that lever. What's more, if you fall asleep at the controls, you run the risk of leaning on that lever, and far too much of the time sleeping on the lever pushes it backwards. Why? Because failing to control is failure, and failure is miserable. From this day forward, you are going to visualize that train every time a feeling comes over you or a decision needs to be made. Every thought you think that has the potential to affect your mood or your actions should be placed into this train where its effect on the control lever can be judged. Once that picture begins in your mind, You must consciously make the effort to reject the thoughts and actions that would push that lever toward misery. It is just as easy as it sounds. If your ex-girlfriend who cheated on you with your best buddy and cut holes in all your favorite socks suddenly enters your mind, simply examine those thoughts as if you're standing at the train controls. Thinking for even a moment about your socks or her frolicking in bed with your best old ex-friend will surely push the lever toward misery, so you must consciously reject the thought. Do not even entertain a single imaginary vision of what they're doing. That's a push backwards. Do not let your imagination in any way dictate how that lever is supposed to be pushed. Control how it is pushed. Even when the thought or memory you're entertaining is factual and not imaginary, quickly push it to the side if it is negative, choosing instead a forward-moving, positive thought. Now and then it won't be so easy to find positives in a negative situation. In order to deal with this, you should always have a handful of backup thoughts available to pick from. The easiest of these is something action-oriented, particularly if it relates to work you're undertaking toward a goal. I have found that I get my best start toward writing when I substitute "finish my book" for thinking about the mistakes I've made. Nothing gets me depressed faster than considering the poor choices of my past, and nothing gets me writing, leading to finished projects and increased income, faster than substituting "write another chapter" for "what was I thinking?" You may not realize it, but you've been using this substitution method your entire life. Sadly, you've likely been substituting all the wrong things. Throwing another beer down your gullet is often just a substitute for thinking about something troubling. The problem is that both of these things push the train lever toward misery. Why trade one pain-inducing thought or behavior for another? If you honestly, consciously examine that next beer, you'll almost always conclude that its overall effect will be to launch the lever backward. Likewise with sitting down to an hour of reality television, or gorging on a half bag of cheese curls, lighting up a bowl of Jamaica's finest, or creeping on your best ex-friend's Facebook page. These are all poor substitutes for what it is you are trying to avoid, and they should also be avoided. But you already know that, don't you? So why let yourself do the things that will inevitably induce pain? You can stop any depression, any bad mood, any bad anything in its tracks if you'll just force yourself to follow through on what you already know are good versus bad decisions. This is the basis of cognitive behavioral therapy, seeing the negative and avoiding it by controlling the direction and quality of your thoughts. Backup thoughts and activities should always, not just sometimes, be of a positive nature. They should always be geared toward pushing that lever forward toward joy. The taste of a Krispy Kreme may have a short-term positive effect, but the long-term detriment to your health and self-image is surely negative. Therefore, eat a donut cannot properly substitute for smoke some weed. And obviously smoke some weed can never properly substitute for think about that money I lost betting against Denver. All of these situations are bad in some form and will likely stop your forward momentum or increase the speed of your backward momentum. Have a backup plan consisting of both thoughts and actions which is aimed at moving you toward a positive goal. Never leave yourself stuck with only backward-inducing options. The last thing I'll say here is that you may find yourself tempted to abandon this strategy when the worst of the worst comes to call. The most tragic of life's circumstances will test even the strongest of us in ways that I dare not poo-poo within this text. In no way do I wish to make light of or otherwise minimize the deepest, darkest days we all face at points within our lives. For as hard as it is to accept, though, those dark moments are exactly the same as spilling your coffee or losing your car keys. They can be viewed from a negative or a positive perspective. One of the most common situations in which we use this truth is the death of a loved one. How often have you heard or said, "She's in a better place now"? Whether or not this is true, the thought provides comfort for us by changing the negative, an illness or potential pain, to a positive, the release from such things. Many cultures rightly celebrate the death of loved ones, and for this reason, among others. When we say, "He led a good life," or "He lived to a ripe old age," we are in essence giving ourselves permission to turn the pain of death into the joyous recognition of a life well lived. This is right and proper, and is perhaps the best example of the technique I've just described. The greatest motivators in the world teach visualization, and the most prolific producers, in athletics, in business, in life, use visualization every day to drive themselves towards success. If you can consciously recognize those moments where you have the option to push the lever toward positive or negative, and you can consistently stop yourself from heading backwards by forcing yourself, if necessary, to think forward, you can handle any amount of pain or apathy that would otherwise permeate your world. This is the surest cure for depression and a host of other mental illnesses, and it's the easiest way to take charge of your thoughts, which means taking charge of your life. Until you take control of the activity of your brain and guide it in the direction you wish it to go, you'll never change your life. If you truly want to be in charge of what goes on around you, it's time to take control of what goes on inside you. In this case, the you who occupies your every thought.